The rain drizzled softly against the cobblestone streets of York, a city steeped in history and secrets. Elizabeth walked briskly, her umbrella shielding her from the cold, wet evening. Her heels clicked against the stone, echoing faintly in the otherwise quiet lane. She had lived here her entire life, yet tonight felt different, heavy with the weight of what she was about to do. Elizabeth was married to Thomas, a respected solicitor known for his sharp wit and steady demeanor. They had been together for 12 years, building a life that looked perfect from the outside. Their home was a cozy Victorian townhouse, their weekends filled with dinner parties and walks along the River Ouse. Yet, behind the closed doors of their carefully curated life, Elizabeth felt an ache she couldn't ignore. Her marriage had become a routine, comfortable, predictable, and devoid of passion. Her thoughts were interrupted as she reached the small cafe at the corner of the street. Inside, the warmth of the fire and the soft hum of conversation created an inviting refuge from the chill outside. She spotted him immediately. James, sitting at a corner table, his dark hair slightly tousled, a scarf draped casually around his neck. James was an artist, a man whose free-spirited nature contrasted sharply with Thomas's reserved personality. Elizabeth had met him at a local gallery a few months ago. She had been drawn to one of his paintings, a vibrant depiction of the Yorkshire moors, and their conversation had flowed effortlessly from there. What had started as innocent chats about art and life had quickly deepened into something neither of them had anticipated. "You came," James said, his smile lighting up his face as she approached. Elizabeth nodded, her heart pounding. "I wasn't sure if I should." "I'm glad you did," he said, motioning for her to sit. They talked over cups of steaming tea, their conversation a mix of light banter and unspoken tension. James had a way of making her feel seen, his gaze lingering just a moment too long, his words filled with warmth and curiosity. As the evening wore on, the cafe grew quieter, the world outside shrouded in darkness. "Elizabeth," James said softly, his voice pulling her from her thoughts. "I can't stop thinking about you. I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend there's nothing between us." Her breath caught. She had known this moment would come, yet hearing him say the words made it real. She felt a mix of exhilaration and fear, her emotions battling for control. "James, she hesitated, searching for the right words. "I feel it too, but it's wrong." He reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "Sometimes the right things aren't easy, Elizabeth. I don't want to hurt you or your life, but I also don't want to deny what we have." Their affair began that night, a whirlwind of stolen moments and whispered confessions. They met in hidden corners of the city, quiet parks, dimly lit pubs, and once, daringly, in the studio where James painted. He showed her a world filled with color and spontaneity, awakening a part of her she had buried long ago. But the secrecy took its toll. Elizabeth felt the weight of her betrayal every time she returned home to Thomas, who remained oblivious to her late evenings and distracted demeanor. He was a good man, steady and kind, and the thought of hurting him filled her with guilt. One evening, as she stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, Thomas approached her, a frown creasing his brow. "You've been distant lately," he said, his voice gentle but concerned. "Is everything all right?" Elizabeth forced a smile, her hands trembling as she chopped vegetables. "Just tired, that's all. Work has been demanding." Thomas nodded, accepting her answer, but the doubt in his eyes lingered. As the months passed, the affair grew harder to conceal. James began to push for more time together, his frustration evident. "I don't want to be a secret forever," he said one evening as they walked along the riverbank. "You deserve more than this." Elizabeth looked at him, her heart aching. "I don't know what to do, James. Leaving Thomas feels impossible, but so does letting you go." "You can't have both," he said, his voice tinged with sadness. "I love you, Elizabeth, but I need to know if you're willing to fight for us." The days that followed were filled with turmoil. Elizabeth replayed James's words in her mind. her heart torn between loyalty and longing. She knew she couldn't continue living a double life, but the thought of making a choice paralyzed her. One rainy afternoon, she found herself at James's studio. He was painting, his movements fluid and focused. She watched him for a moment, her emotions swirling like the storm outside. "James," she said softly, stepping inside. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Have you made your decision?" he asked. Elizabeth nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I can't leave Thomas. He's been my life for so long, and I can't bring myself to destroy what we have." James's shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with disappointment. "I understand," he said quietly, "but this isn't just about me, Elizabeth. It's about what makes you happy. Don't lose yourself trying to protect everyone else." They parted that day, their goodbye filled with pain and unspoken words. Elizabeth returned home, determined to rebuild her life with Thomas. She threw herself into their marriage, trying to reignite the connection they once had. But the memory of James lingered, a bittersweet reminder of what she had given up. Years later, as Elizabeth walked through the streets of York, she passed the gallery where she had first met James. His paintings still hung on the walls, vibrant and full of life. She paused, her heart aching with a mixture of regret and gratitude. Their affair had been fleeting, but it had awakened something within her, a reminder that life was meant to be lived fully, even if it came at a cost. The rain began to fall again, soft and steady, as Elizabeth continued down the cobblestone street, carrying her secrets with her.